The arena of eternity pulsed like a living heart. Millions of souls filled the stands, beings from 4 galaxies, angels, spirits, mortals, watchers, and ancient creatures from corners of creation that had not been seen in eons. The arena glowed beneath them, plates of light shifting like scales, breathing, listening. And among all this noise, a hush passed through the crowd. Yeshua was already seated. He had arrived without fanfare, without a procession, no trumpets, no banners. He simply sat in the quietest section of the stands, wrapped in calm. His presence was unmistakable, a warmth that steadied the air, a peace that made the arena breathe more slowly. He lifted his head once. The entire arena fell still. Then the silence broke with an explosion of light. The gods had arrived. You are watching the Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. First came Amarith, goddess of Lunara. A soft violet glow filled the tunnel. Then she stepped into the arena, tall, radiant, confident. Her lavender robes floated like living dusk. Her crown shimmered with starlight. Her Lunari people erupted with delicate bell-like chimes, the highest honor they could give. She raised one hand, smiling with pride. The arena clapped with light. Next came Vorian, god of Zitharon. The air vibrated like a machine powering on. His footsteps were thunder made of steel. Vorian appeared wrapped in obsidian armor flooded with neon lines of blue light. Behind him came his Zitharon legion, marching in perfect, terrifying sync. Their greeting was simple, a single metallic stomp. The entire arena floor shook. He nodded once toward Yeshua, not a bow, but a warrior's acknowledgement, then sat with cold precision. Then came Ashira, goddess of Silaris. A hush fell. Her presence was soft, but powerful. She walked in calm steps, her dark skin glowing like starless night, her white hair trailing like moonlight. Her people greeted her in silence, placing a hand over their hearts. A silent storm of devotion. Then she took her seat. Then, the final entrance. Golden fire erupted from the sky. He descended in a blaze that rolled across the arena floor like a living sun. His people roared with joy. They lifted banners, beat drums, stamped their feet. Even the stars outside the arena flickered. He smiled, loving every second of it. He lifted his hands. Silence obeyed him instantly. The God of the universe spoke.
My people,
his voice boomed, warm and proud.
Today is a day written long before time began.
He paused.
And this year I have invited special guests.
The arena shook.
The inner circle. Let them be honored in the sight of gods and galaxies.
One by one, he called them.
Angel Lorna Miller, the Silver Herald of Dawn.
She stepped forward. A silver aura spread softly around her form. Applause rolled through the arena, steady, measured, unbroken, as the inner circle stepped onto the stage, one by one.
GP, the golden voice of the savannah.
He took his place. A warm hum resonated through the air.
J.A. Sanchez Martinez, keeper of the twin suns.
Twin beams crossed above him as he lifted his hand.
Juan Frazier, guardian of the southern gate.
He stepped forward. The stone beneath the stage answered his weight.
Valerie Walton, bearer of the golden laurel.
A crown of gold shimmered above her brow. She bowed once.
Letitia Lillestrom, the sapphire whisperer.
A sapphire glow encircled her, calm, commanding.
Endati Theresa, the emerald shield.
Green light spiraled outward from her feet, then settled.
Precious Gudza, the starlit warrior of the east.
Tiny flecks of starlight flicked constantly around her, never settling.
Ivan Summons, the azure flamekeeper.
Blue fire clung to his shoulders as he stepped into the light.
Angel Favors, the silver wing of mercy.
Wings of pure light unfolded behind her. And then the arena darkened. A single spotlight ignited.
And last, the one who carries the stories of all realms,
The crowd leaned forward.
the tales of the savannah, the storyteller.
He stepped forward. The arena erupted. Even Yeshua smiled. Then the God of the universe lifted his hand.
Let the champions come forth.
From the celestial seat, the reigning champions. Naraka, the lion god. He stepped into the center, his mane ablaze with golden fire. The arena shook under his feet. The hunter goddess, the falcon-hearted blade, appeared beside him, light as wind, sharp as a scream in battle. They stood as one, unmatched, unbowed. The arena roared. From Lunara, the champions of Amarith. Virelia, the starborn. Her eyes glowed like twin stars. Her body pulsed with fierce purple light. Beauty mixed with danger. Kalar, the voidwing. Tall, dark, radiant. His power simmered like a storm waiting to break. They entered with elegance, sharpened into violence. Lunara rose as one to honor them. From Zitharon, Vorian's champions. Zyrith, the blade of precision. A warrior built of metal and mind. Eyes cold, movements exact. Korvax, the Void Reaper. Silent, deadly. His body hummed with energy, each step controlled. The Zitherians stomped in perfect time. From Sileris, Ashira's champions. Garalith, the mind-breaker of Sileris. Her calm face belied her terrifying gift. Behind her eyes swirled storms that crushed the minds of the unprepared. Orionis, the silent pulse. Tall, graceful, serene, yet his psychic power could tear illusions apart and shatter fear itself. Their people placed hands over hearts. Silence was their roar, and the arena breathed. The champions stood in a circle. 4 galaxies, 8 warriors, 1 legendary battlefield. The arena of eternity pulsed beneath them. Hungry, awake, ready. The games of the galaxies had begun. The God of the universe rose from his throne of living light. The arena fell silent in a breath. He spread his arms wide, a theatrical grin stretching across his face, the kind that only he could pull off.
People of the 4 galaxies, these games have only one rule.
His voice dropped lower.
Fight until surrender.
A gasp rolled through the arena. He lifted a single finger.
Or
He paused, letting the silence work for him.
until death.
The arena exploded. Shouts, screams, gasps, awe. The living floor shivered in excitement. The God of the universe laughed softly.
Do not fear. The arena is fair. It judges cleanly. What falls here, falls honestly.
His words felt like thunder wrapped in velvet. Then a sphere of gold light appeared before him, a floating orb made of shifting glyphs and galaxy dust. Inside it, the 8 names, the 4 pairs, 4 fates. The arena gasped. The sphere spun faster and faster, light bending around it like a small sun. The God of the universe raised a hand toward it.
The arena itself will choose who fights first.
The sphere cracked open into 4 lotus-like petals of pure starlight. Inside each petal hovered a single glowing token, swirling with the essence of each pair. Lunara, Virelia and Kalar. Zitharon, Zirith and Korvax. Sileris, Garalith and Orionis. Celestial Seat, Naraka and the Hunter Goddess. The tokens rose. The arena shook. The God of the universe pressed his palm forward.
Reveal.
The tokens erupted upward, clashed in mid-air, and 2 fell into the center arena, the first 2 chosen. They burned bright. Naraka and the Hunter Goddess versus Virelia and Kalar of Lunara. The arena screamed. Beauty versus brutality. Moonlight versus stormfire. Elegance versus raw celestial power. The God of the universe lifted both hands.
The opening battle of the Galaxy Games
He paused.
begins with Lunara and the Celestial Seat.
The arena shook like a living beast. The second match. The sphere spun again. 2 remaining tokens collided.
Ex-Witheron, Xyrith and Corvax versus Silaris, Garalith and Orionis.
A cold cheer rose from Zitharon, precise, perfect, in rhythm. Silaris raised no voice. Instead, a wave of soft psychic pressure rolled outward, like a silent roar felt in the bones. The arena trembled in approval. For the first time, Lunara was shouting. Their normally delicate hands slapped against their glowing robes as they cheered wildly for their champions. Even the softest among them felt fire in their veins. Zitharon stomped the ground in perfect time. Boom, 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 their unity terrifying and magnificent. Silaris glowed brighter and brighter, soft light turning fierce. Their psychic murmurs filled the air, not words, but intention, and the Savannians were losing their minds with excitement. They stood, they screamed, they waved arms, they shouted names. This was their moment. This was their arena. Even the arena of eternity pulsed brighter at the sound of their voices. The crowd quieted.
Champions, prepare yourselves.
The arena floor shifted under their feet, the battleground forming, alive, pulsing with divine hunger.
Today the galaxies clash. Tomorrow legends rise. And now,
his smile widened.
Let the games begin.
The rains had not let up for days. Now, as Paka and Nyala knelt before the altar of stone high in the mountains, the heavens wept less violently, as if sensing something sacred. Nyala's hands moved with calm precision. Her garments clung to her body, soaked, her hair plastered to her face, but her eyes burned with purpose. Paka watched her in silence, standing behind her. For once, the future king had no words, no commands, no questions. She was not his lover in this moment. She was not a visitor to his land. She was a vessel. Nyala reached for her satchel and pulled out muti herbs, sacred leaves used for opening spiritual gates. She threw them into the fire that they had struggled to light beneath the small shrine. The smoke rose with an eerie hum. Then she began to chant, "Spirits of the savannah, guardians of the soil and sky, hear me now. We come not with pride, but with need." The clouds above rumbled. "You who govern the waters, the rains, the rivers, the floods that bless and punish, we call you now." Thunder cracked in the distance. The wind howled and circled them like a living thing. Paka felt it, the power. The very air changed. Nyala was no longer fully here. Her voice was deeper now, echoing with something ancient. "We offer blood, not in arrogance, but in humility. A life for a land. Rain must stop, or the lion's pride will drown." She stood. Her hand reached behind her back and pulled the blade from its sheath. The dagger gleamed with wet light. Paka opened his mouth to speak, but it was too late. She turned, and with one swift movement, sliced the neck of the cow. The animal didn't cry. It collapsed, peaceful. Nyala knelt again. She dipped her fingers into the blood and drew a line on her forehead. Then she whispered, "Let this be counted. Let this be seen." And as she whispered that final line, something shifted. The rain softened, then stopped. The wind died, the clouds thinned. The sky, for the first time in what felt like forever, was silent. Paka stepped forward, amazed. He grabbed her by the shoulders, lifted her to her feet. He laughed, a deep, joyful sound, wet with tears. "You did it. You stopped it." He pulled her into a tight embrace. She did not speak. Her eyes stared into the distance. "You don't understand," she said softly. "There is always a price." Back in the village, a strange stillness fell. Mothers looked up. Children walked outside, eyes wide. The rains were gone. Muka stepped out of his hut. He looked up slowly. His old eyes welled with tears, not of joy but of knowing. "What have you done, Paka?" he whispered. Not far from him, Makosi, the old lion seeress, stepped barefoot into the wet earth. She sniffed the air, felt it on her skin. "There is powerful magic here," she murmured. but it does not feel welcomed. She closed her eyes. Something wasn't right. Above, in the ancestral savannah, far beyond what the living could see, above the veil of time, in the golden grasslands of the spirit world, the ancestral savannah, the elders sat in council. And Samson, father of lions, sat watching from his seat of stone. A younger ancestor rose, his voice shaking. "Samson, the ritual has been done. The rain has stopped. The mourning has been cut short." Another whispered, "We should call Naraka." "No," Samson said. They turned to him. "We let it be." "But Shumba, he will wait." They all turned. And somewhere on the path between life and legend, Shumba stood barefoot in the tall spirit grass. The wind brushed against him. He'd been walking for what felt like days. Ahead of him stood a great gate. It shimmered with golden light, the final threshold to enter the ancestral savannah. He took a step, but something pulled him back. He tried again. The air around him pushed. He turned. Spirits walked past him, familiar kings, fallen warriors, but he could not move. "What is this?" His voice was soft. He looked up, and for the first time, he was afraid. Back in the mountains, Paka stood beside Nyala, smiling wide. "You saved us." Nyala nodded, but she did not smile fully. "I did." A single tear slid down her cheek. "And the earth will remember. It always does." The rains had stopped, yes, but at what cost? The gods were not watching. The ancestors were waiting. And somewhere, in the space between worlds, a great lion stood alone, afraid. There is a simple truth about life. No matter how far away a date feels, it comes. The wheel of time does not stop for mourning hearts, for wishful thinking, for not yet. It just turns. And on this day, it turned for Jabali. Akina rose early, humming to herself, smelling the fresh village air. A beautiful day, she thought, the kind that made you grateful to be alive. She had plans, simple joys, chores to attend to, but something in the yard caught her eye. 3 figures, 2 standing, 1 sitting, or crouched, no, covered. Akina squinted. It was Zanele and Anita, churchwomen, familiar faces. She stepped out slowly, still smiling. "Zanele, Anita, what brings you here?" Her voice was light. Zanele nodded. "Peace, Akina. We come in peace. We've brought your bride, Sekai." Akina laughed softly, confused. "Bride? You must be mistaken. We have no sons here." Anita didn't blink. "No mistake. Is there no man in this household?" "Of course there is. My husband." She chuckled, the smile still lingering. "But then the bride is for him. The bride price has been paid. We're here to deliver your wife with child." Akina's breath caught. The smile fell. Her legs weakened. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "This is a joke, right?" "It is not." The door creaked behind her. Jabali stepped out, already sweating. Akina turned to him, hope still holding her upright. "Jabali?" she asked, her voice trembling. But he said nothing, and his silence broke her. "What are they saying, Jabali?" she demanded again, louder now. He lowered his eyes. He couldn't look at her. "What are they saying?" Chipo stepped outside. "Mother? What's happening? Why are they here? Did someone die?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Where are the cows, Jabali?" Zanele asked. "Cows?" Akina whispered. "Yes, 12? She looked at Jabali, now barely standing. "You gave away 12 cows." She turned to Zanele, tears burning. "And you say she's pregnant?" "Yes," Zanele said softly. Akina staggered back, dizzy. Her world spun. Chipa was crying now too. "Father, what is going on?" Zanele's boys were already near the kraal, pointing at the best cows. Everything was unraveling. Jabali grabbed Zanele's arm. "You should have told me you were coming today." "You married her," Zanele said calmly. "We waited until she was well, and now she is. This is the agreement, or have you forgotten?" Akina had vanished into the house. "Stay here," Jabali barked at everyone and rushed inside after Akina. Inside, Akina was throwing clothes into a bag. Her hands were trembling. Her tears wouldn't stop. He rushed in. "Akina, what are you doing?" "I'm leaving you, Jabali," she said without even looking at him. "You've destroyed our home. How could you marry someone else? How could you pay for her, and she is pregnant? It wasn't meant to go this far. I was just playing." "Playing?" she screamed, whirling on him. "With 12 cows and a pregnancy you were playing? Is it because you wanted a son, Jabali? Is that it? Because I couldn't give you one?" "No, Akina, it's not that." "Then what is it?" she roared. He looked at the floor, mute. She pushed past him. "Get out of my way!" Desperate, Jabali blocked the door. He grabbed her arm. "It is also your fault, Akina. You are not innocent in this." "My fault?" she spat, yanking free. "You were pulling away, calling another man's name in your dreams. Lulenga." The name stopped her cold. How did he know that name? "You think I don't know you went to the river to see him? I followed you." A cold clarity washed over Akina, cutting through her hysteria. "It is not the same. I did not cheat on you. Not really." "Not really," Jabali mocked. "Jabali, are you blind? You have a woman outside you paid a bride price for. How is this the same?" Her voice dropped, deadly calm. "But since we are telling truths, Jabali, Lulenga and I have a child together, older than Chipo, from before I ever knew you." "I knew it!" Jabali shouted, a bitter triumph in his eyes. "You have been keeping secrets." "It is not the same," she said, each word precise as a knife strike. "It all happened before you. I thought my child was dead for a long time until recently. I had the chance, a huge chance, to be with Lulenga. I did not take it, because I respected our marriage. I loved you with all my heart, and you broke it into pieces. I can never forgive you for this. But you must admit, you pushed me away, Akina. You refused me for many nights." "I pushed you," she laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You needed no push. You were already running, straight into the arms of a child. What did she give you, Jabali? Huh? Was it the chance to finally feel like a big man? To corrupt something innocent? Don't you speak of her like what, Jabali? Is she precious to you now, your expensive pregnant wife? You are a fool. You were played by a girl and her mother, and you sold our lives to pay for it." She closed the distance between them until her breath hit his face. Her tears had evaporated, burned off by a cold, clarifying rage. "Was it fun?" she hissed, her words graphic and brutal. "Was the fun worth 12 cows and your family? Did you have your fun in our bed? Did you bring her smell back to our sheets? Did you look at my face afterward and still pretend to be my man? I bet that was fun for you, Jabali, dipping into 2 honeypots. For 12 cows, Jabali, I think I deserve at least the details. It's only fair, don't you think?" He flinched with every word, his face crumbling. "I chose to build a life with you. I chose to be faithful." She leaned back, her voice crumbling. "And you? You chose to be a customer. You saw a young girl. How old is she, Jabali? 18, 19, just a few years older than our Chipo? And you bought her. You are not a husband. You are a man with an expensive receipt and nothing to show for it." He flinched. "She is 21, he choked out, a broken defense. 18, 19, 21, what's the difference?" she thundered. "You wanted a young thing to make you feel like the big chief, and you paid for it with my life. You betrayed me, you've humiliated me, in front of our daughter, in front of the village." She shoved past him. "Get out of my way." "Please, Akina," he begged. "We can fix this. There is nothing to fix." She stepped outside with her bag. Chipo rushed to her. "Mother, what's happening? Where are you going?" "I'm leaving." "No, don't leave me with these people." Akina cupped Chipo's face. "This is your father's house. You stay." "I don't want to stay with him," Chipo cried. "I need time," Akina said. "I need to breathe. I need to think." She turned to walk. Jabali was crying now too. "I made a mistake," he said. "Akina, please, don't leave." She didn't look back. Zanele watched silently. Under her blanket, Sekai sobbed quietly. She could hear the family shattering around her because of her presence. She beneath the blanket, as tradition required. In this moment, she did not belong to the world she had come from, nor had she been fully received into the world ahead. In her culture, this covering was meant to mark a sacred crossing, a young woman being carried from one household into another, protected while the ancestors observed, while the living prepared to welcome her. Normally, this moment would have been loud with celebration. Women would have gathered ululating and laughing. Elders would have spoken blessings. Coins and notes would have been pressed into Sekai's hands. Money given not as payment, but as honor, a way of saying, "We see you, we accept you, we value what you bring into this family." At the right moment, she would have been asked to uncover herself, and when she did, there would have been joy, pride, applause. But this was not that moment. There were no songs, no gifts, no crowd, no laughter waiting on the other side of the cloth. Sekai was not being welcomed as a bride in celebration, but carried quietly, carefully, as a problem that needed to be managed. The blanket did not feel ceremonial. It felt heavy, not because she was unworthy, but because the order of things had been broken. This rite was meant for a bride's entering marriage with honor and witnesses. Sekai entered it with silence instead, with questions, with shame that did not belong to her alone, but settled on her shoulders all the same. And so she remained covered, not because the ancestors had rejected her, but because no one yet knew how to speak her name in this new place. As Akina walked away, not looking back, Jabali stood in the ruins of his life. His wife was gone. His daughter looked at him with bewildered, accusatory eyes. And in his yard sat his new, weeping wife, a transaction covered in cloth, the costly prize he never meant to win. The game of life had been played, and everyone had lost. Well, maybe except one. That night, Makuru village did not rest easy. At Jabali's homestead, silence clung to the walls like dust. Chipo cried herself to sleep. Jabali did not sleep at all. Sekai had been moved into what used to be a storage room. It smelled of maize meal and old herbs. She sobbed quietly into the floor pillow, and far away, under the old stone church, beneath the pulpit where prayers echoed by day, the Brotherhood met. The sacred torches were lit. The round stone table sat in the center of the chamber. Around it, the warlocks took their places, faces shadowed, heads heavy with silence. Papa Pele cleared his throat. "I called this meeting," he began slowly, "because I believe the Brotherhood has been betrayed by one among us." The silence thickened. Father Bernard, cloaked and still, bowed his head. "In the Brotherhood, we speak truth," Papa Pele continued. "Truth that can burn, truth that can fracture, but truth that protects." He paused. "Father Bernard, you lay with a witch." A few gasps echoed, not because they were shocked, but because they finally heard it said out loud. Papa Pele's voice grew colder. "You had a child with her. You hid that child. You sat in these seats for years while your secret sat like a ticking spell underneath us. Do you know what this means?" Father Bernard said nothing. He knew. The Brotherhood's code was clear. Secrets like this demanded trial, and trial meant the possibility of exile or demotion. Nkosana spoke up. "Papa Pele, with respect, it happened years ago. He's been a good leader. Shouldn't that count for something?" "But what if the witches had known our identities?" Papa Pele snapped. "What if this had cost us all our lives? Brotherhood lives in secrecy, not just in power. Do we forget who we are?" Zuberi spoke. "Let us vote." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Papa Pele leaned back, pleased. This was his moment. He had always wanted to be Grand Master. He was the oldest, a man of deep magic and deeper ambition. Perhaps tonight, the chair would be his. They would vote the old way. No stones, no papers. Each man would be called a name, a verdict. Zuberi stood. "I vote." He steps down. Papa Pele smiled. Nkosana stood. He stays. Another brother. He stays. Another. He must go. 5 said yes. 5 said no. It was 5 to 5. 2 more left. The next stood. He must stay. 6 to 5. Papa Pele frowned. Only 1 vote remained. All heads turned. Sekai's uncle stood, the same man whose bowels had betrayed him in the sacred cave just days ago. Papa Pele's face tightened. This could be it. A draw. A draw would force the Brotherhood to adjourn and reconvene on a later date, and that suited Papa Pele just fine. It would buy him time to speak, to persuade, to remind certain brothers of where loyalty should lie. He did not need everyone. Just 1 more vote. 1 shift was enough to turn a stalemate into control. The uncle looked up, sighed heavily. You always call me last, he said dramatically. Why always me? He looked at Father Bernard. You disappointed us, not because of Zanele, but because you didn't trust us with the truth. He turned slowly to Papa Pele. And you, he said, you chased me around that cave like a demon with a toilet roll, in front of the brothers. The Brotherhood tried not to laugh. Tried. I was humiliated, the uncle said. But, he paused, looked around. The silence was deep. I vote. Father Bernard stays. Papa Pele shot up from his seat. What? You? The man who cannot even hold his own bowels? You? We left the fate of the Brotherhood to a man who farts under pressure? The uncle shrugged. I'm regular. What can I say? The entire Brotherhood burst into laughter. Papa Pele shouted louder. I knew I should have locked you up the other day. I'm sorry, Papa Pele, the uncle said solemnly, but Father Bernard stays. Zuberi wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. Even Father Bernard chuckled. When the room finally quieted, Father Bernard stood. He faced his brothers. His voice was low, steady. Thank you for your grace and your judgment. I will do better. He looked at each man, even the ones who voted against him. I failed you, not because I loved someone, but because I feared your rejection. That was my true betrayal. The Brotherhood listened. I promise, from today forward, my heart is yours again. My secrets are yours again. Because secrecy is our power, and identity is our shield. They nodded. That was the way of the Brotherhood. Walk among the villagers, hide in plain sight, be the invisible protectors of the balance. Papa Pele grunted. Father Bernard looked at him. And you, old friend? Papa Pele folded his arms. Speak again, and I'll lock your mouth too. The Brotherhood laughed once more. And just like that, another storm had passed. Balance was fragile in Makuru, but for now, it held. Preparations were underway. Ziva's kingdom buzzed with quiet excitement. Musicians tuned their shell instruments and water drums, testing tones that rippled gently through the current. Large ceremonial bowls were stirred slowly, releasing warm, fragrant trails into the water. Woven kelp mats were laid in careful rows along the palace clearing. Ceremonial palm wine, thick, dark, and rare, was being poured into carved conch vessels, and in the middle of it all stood Ziva, proud, restless, smiling like a man who had just stolen the moon and gotten away with it. He had done something petty, but he did not care. The invitation to the naming ceremony had already been sent. It would arrive on the very day that Lulenga and Mamiwata had planned their own Thanksgiving in the deep. Ziva had timed it perfectly. He could almost picture Lulenga's face, that familiar tightening of the jaw, the irritation carefully masked behind composure. Let him clench. Let him fume. Ziva chuckled quietly, the sound swallowed by the water. Still, the truth was, he was happy, truly happy, more than he had been in a long time. His children were strong. Amina was healing. And something about this ceremony, this moment, made him feel anchored, as though the tides themselves had finally accepted him as the man and king he had always hoped to become. So, what is a naming ceremony? To understand the weight of this day, we must pause. In many cultures, whether on land or beneath the sea, the naming of a child is more than a family gathering. It is a spiritual rite, a sacred crossing. A name is not simply a sound, it is a declaration. It is history shaped into breath. It is legacy, carried forward through generations. It is hope, spoken into the very bones of a newborn. Naming ceremonies differ across peoples, but they often include music, storytelling, and ancestral blessing. Elders gather, the community bears witness. Offerings may be made, symbolic or real, to thank the ancestors for life. Water may be poured into the currents, or the child passed gently from one set of hands to another, each person whispering blessings into the tide. Sometimes, names are chosen by the moment of birth. Sometimes, they come through dreams or visions, and sometimes, the name reveals itself in the child's cry or in their silence. The name is sacred, because to name something is to call it fully into existence. And today, Ziva and Akina were preparing to call their children forth, into the kingdom, into their people, into their story. Everything was ready. That moment, he hoped only for one thing, that Lulenga would behave, that Mami Wata would not arrive with sharp words or heavy glances. Let them not be petty. Let them not bring old tides into a new beginning. This day was for the children, and to bring drama into a naming ceremony, that would be beneath them, wouldn't it?
Savanians, assemble. Last week I called upon you to make your voices heard in our official census and declare which people you call your own. The response has been incredible, and the results are still flooding in. Right now, the hunters are on the prowl and in the lead. Here's how the tribes currently stand. The hunters, 33%. The merfolk, 28%. The lion people, 25%. The snake people, 14%. Have you pledged your allegiance? If not, join the ranks before it's too late. Every voice shifts the balance of power. And Savanians, the games are upon us. The Galactic Championship is at our gates. Who will emerge as the ultimate champion? Share your bold predictions and fiery support in the comments.
Want to support the channel and become an even bigger part of our tribe? You can join for as little as the cost of a coffee each month. Your support helps me continue creating the content you love, but of course, just having you here is already more than enough. Thank you for being part of this journey. To those of you who have already joined the tribe, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are truly the heartbeat of this channel. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.